What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. It's time for another episode of Min-Maxing for Fun and Profit in Pathfinder 1st Edition. Monster. Today, by patron request, it's a prestige class and it's a feat together for an all more perfect build. Mortal Usher, Death Field, Grim Reaper time it is. If you're liking what you're seeing, remember to like, subscribe, ding the bell. If you have requests for this series, throw them down in the comments. Remember that patronage at any tier gets you to the front of the line. There are some 2nd edition things still floating around in the inbox on that front too. And like a lot of enchanters, it turns out. Like 4 of you have asked for mesmerists. We're getting there. Anyway, let's dive in. Okie dokie. So before we get to the build itself, let's talk about the crux of it. Let's talk about what makes it good. Let's talk about what we're building around. Firstly, the Mortal Usher. A psychopomp flavored prestige class, an agent of Pharasma on the material plane, and really just the most good stuffy of prestige classes I've seen in a while. To become this thing, we will need to be any neutral alignment, have knowledge, the planes and religion 6 ranks, and with the special requirement, we must befriend a psychopomp or perform a deed of great significance in defense of the natural order of life and death. Undead creatures can never become Mortal Ushers, and a Mortal Usher who becomes undead immediately loses the benefits. Now, this is far from the Hell Knight's need to, like, go slay a devil in single combat. Really, this is probably the easiest special requirement I've ever seen. How many Pathfinder adventures have you fight hordes of the undead, right? That's deed of great significance in the defense of the natural order. Well, I guess maybe not kill 1d3 zombies, but, like, save enough towns from enough cabals of ghouls, you should come out just fine. We also will have the chance to get an improved familiar in-house. Though we did not take that feat in the worst case scenario, grab you and a soy psychopomp. Boom, he's your friend, got him. This prestige class does a lot of things. When I say good stuff, I mean in the sense of like a Magic the Gathering deck. Does it do anything super flashy? No. But it makes everyone better at what they do, and it does things that are just generally helpful in all modes of play. While you may not shine like that Shocking Grasp Magus next to you, while you may not be as essential as that Oridon putting you back together, you are very good. First off, with Reaping Strike, whenever we deal hit point damage by using the attack action, casting a spell that targets only a single creature, or throwing an alchemical item as a standard action, like Alchemist Bombs, we deal an additional 1d6 points of damage to the target, plus an additional 1d6 for every 2 additional class levels beyond first. The damage is positive energy damage if the target is undead, or negative energy damage if the target is living. Creatures that are neither living nor dead are unaffected. If it wasn't for the feat I'm pairing with this, 10 out of 10 would build on a rogue, because that's just extra d6s on top of your d6s for like a huge Vital Strike sneak attack thing. Speaking of which, at 1st level, a Mortal Usher gains Vital Strike, and at 6th level gets improved Vital Strike, even if they would not normally meet the prereqs. If the Mortal Usher already has Vital Strike or improved Vital Strike when he would gain it, he can immediately swap it for another feat for which he qualified at the level he first took it. In-house retraining, very good. Also, for the purposes of qualifying for any feat that includes Vital Strike as a prereq, the Mortal Usher can use his class level in place of his BAB, adding his value to the former class that he was before he started helping Pharasma purge the world of the undead. Speaking of that, I think creme de la creme of this prestige class, at 2nd level, you choose a class you belong to before adding the prestige class. At 2nd and every 2 levels thereafter, Mortal Ushers gain the class features of an additional level in their chosen class. So if you were a Wizard 5, Mortal Usher 4, which is awkward because you couldn't have qualified. You need 6 ranks in the knowledge checks. That one maybe shoulda got proofread just a little bit. Would get Arcane Bond benefits, caster level, and spells per day as if they were Wizard 7. You, of course, get your D8 hit dice, 2/3 BAB, good fort, goodwill, bad reflex from this prestige class. But think of these like class feats from Pathfinder 2nd, right? Everyone still gets to get that thing that they were doing before they took the prestige class, and this is just kind of a nice icing on top of it. This very much feels like an archetype from P2. as really a lot of the later in Pathfinder 1st Edition prestige classes did. There are a couple that function like this. Anyway, when we hit 3rd level, we can conjure or dismiss a Nisoi's Plague Mask as a free action. Unrelated side note, I really should make a video about Psychopomps at some point because as an outsider subset, they're really cool. The Plague Mask is a physical manifestation of the Mortal Usher's soul, so you can't destroy or steal it, though you can suppress it in an anti-magic field or similar effect. As long as the Mortal Usher has this Plague Mask up, they can cast invisibility as a standard action with a caster level equal to 5+ caster level. So that's permanent invisibility, essentially, as long as you got the standard action, hooray. In addition, the Mortal Usher can activate the Nisoi Plague Mask as a standard action, forcing all living and undead creatures within a 60-foot radius to attempt a will save at 15+ class level. Those who fail are fascinated. The effect continues every round, and that we maintain with a swift, and a round after, we cannot use invisibility. While fascinating and things that save are immune, it's sonic mind affecting, hooray. This isn't as great for us, at least not the fascinated part, but it does allow what we're building to function in non-combat situations, or in situations where you'd rather just avoid the combat. Everyone sits down and quietly watches you while the less stealthy folks sneak on, or you, less stealthy folk, have invisibility just 5 ever. And it gets better at 5th level. The Mortal Usher emits a 30-foot radius aura that acts as calm emotions on creatures within the area. With a DC of 16+ class level, creatures are entitled to a new save each time they re-enter the aura, and a creature who successfully saves is immune. Of course, like, if you start bopping somebody, they're probably going to bop back, but this will stop a barbarian from raging. This will stop bards from bardic performancing. This will stop creatures from attacking until you attack them anyway. It's also a very, very good spell, and so too is the fascinated condition to stop in horror settings bad stuff happening to your party. I learned this playing Rise of the Runelords recently in a certain dungeon that I won't spoil because I'm GMing Rise of the Runelords, where it was very useful to have my bard just switch to fascinate when we were in a place where bad things were happening and you needed to just, nope, stop, look at me. At 7th level, because you needed more sweet, flavorful Psychopomp things, a Mortal Usher gains the ability to designate any cloak, scarf, robe, or shirt as their wrappings, granting it unique powers. The wrapping gives the Mortal Usher a natural armor bonus equal to half his class level, so a +5 natural armor by the end of the day that stacks with all the things, hooray. And they can be used as a magic whip. By the way, you got whip and scythe proficiency, you need to see it. That can be wielded even if the Mortal Usher's hands are full. It's like a second prehensile hair. Oh, I guess I spoiled what we're playing. Oops. When used as a whip, the wrappings gain an enhancement bonus equal to your class level, which can be added to the whip to increase the enhancement bonus to a maximum of 5, or add Brilliant Energy, Disruption, Flaming Burst, Frost, Holy Icy Burst, Shock, Shocking Burst, Unholy, or Vorpal. Adding these properties reduces the enhancement bonus granted by an amount equal to the property's cost. Here's another weird thing you could do with this prestige class. As much as I hate the fact that this thing exists, because it's like the most nonsensical weapon I can think of, the Bladed Scarf. That's a scarf, it's in your possession. You can just free enchant it every level, and it changes sometimes. That's ridiculous. It's also a way to reach out to 15 feet. For what we're doing, it doesn't super help, but like, it's there. At 9th level, you get a 60-foot fly speed with good maneuverability and cold resistance equal to 10 plus your level, a +5 circumstance bonus on acrobatics checks and on concentration checks attempted while casting, and at 10th, you become immune to electricity and death effects, and whenever you are struck by an attacker effect that deals electricity damage, you regain 1 point per 3 points of electricity damage that the attacker effect would normally deal. If you would get over your health with this, you can have up to 50 temporary hit points that last for an hour, which is just straight up abusable if you're carrying a wand of like Shocking Grasp. Drain the wand, get 50 temp HP, go to town. Seriously, there are like 20,000 different ways you could build around this, and I'm so glad that there was a feat stapled on this as well. Because if there wasn't, I'm pretty sure I would still be messing with this, trying to figure out just what the heck we're building. Death Field. With a prereq of Knowledge of the Planes, 5 ranks. As a move action, you can exude deadly energy from your body. While this death field is in effect, small plants wither and recoil from you, allowing you to ignore the effects of difficult terrain caused by plant life, and ignore the effects of spells like Entangle that compel vegetation to grasp at you, provided the spell's level is 3rd or lower. Any swarm that enters your space takes 1d6 points of negative energy damage. This damage is applied before they bite you, so you might nuke a bunch of spiders, hooray. At the end of your turn, each round the death field is active, you take 1 point of negative energy damage, and you cannot be healed by positive energy effects while the death field is in place. Magic items and spells that protect against negative energy damage do not protect against this damage, but if you're undead or have negative energy affinity, the death field instead grants fast healing 1 while it is in effect. You can use this feat's benefits for a number of rounds per day equal to your ranks in Knowledge of the Planes. These rounds need not be consecutive. If you have at least 11 ranks, you can kick it on as a swift. Okay, so this feat's not that good, right? We see this and we think, people can't heal me. I have good sideboard tech against swarms and druids, and what else? And so I got really hung on this particular feat for just a long time. The answer, however, seems much more clearly to lean into this. Fast healing 1 if you like negative energy means today our race will be a Damphir, and moving through Entangles means our goal today will be to cast the Entangle spell, stand inside of it, hurt everyone else with that spell while we suffer no real consequences, and then use our action economy to hurt the folks who are stuck in the thing. There's a billion ways you could do that as well. Today, I think we shall build around the Shaman. Disclaimer before we go any farther, the Unsworn Shaman looks really cool. I really wanted to build around it, but it seems like even post-errata, that archetype just makes people mad. Therefore, I have decided to veer away from it lest I screw it up. RE, the last video I put out. It was a long week, leave it be. Magical Knack for the Shaman as one of our traits will, of course, help keep our caster level relevant. Reactionary, as our second trait, will be staple for everyone, I suppose. And for our particular flavor of Damphir, we will be rolling up the Nosferatu-born. The Con Egg kinda hurts, but the Wisdom buff is pretty darn good. As far as alternate racial traits and things go, you'll know if you need to talk to rats and stuff. I think that's really powerful. If not, the Shaman's ability to, with Wandering Spirit, just like a wizard with their spellbook, switch into different, eventually, wandering hexes to have access to basically whatever you need, kind of follows the theme of the Mortal Usher in that, well, in all things, we are able to do something. For the stat priority, Wisdom, first and foremost. It is our casting stat. It is the thing we want to have super high because we want them to fail all the saves. It is kind of our damage output sometimes, followed immediately by Constitution because I don't want you to die, friend. Dexterity's up there somewhere as well. You'll want to have some for AC initiative saves, but it's not super necessary because most of our pain comes from spells. Strength, Intelligence, Charisma, as low as you are comfortable having them. Honestly, 3 7s. To be the saddest boy looks pretty good. Now feats. Almost all of these will be extra hex. I'm just going to get that out of the way now. Access to witch hexes plus access to a lot of fun shaman-y things means a lot of times that's what our turn looks like. At level 1, we will take Spell Focus, choosing Evocation for that +1 to DC versus our Evocation spells, because the Entangle will want to be casting the most. Burning Entangle, indeed a 3rd level druid spell we are sometimes immune to and the rest of the time can just fly over, sets the foliage on fire. A creature that begins its turn entangled takes 46 points of fire, reflex half, and a creature that begins its turn in the area but is not entangled takes 2d6 points of fire damage, reflex negates. Smoke rising from the vines partially obscures visibility. Creatures can see things in the smoke within 5 feet clearly, but attacks against anything farther must contend with that 20% mischance that is concealment. Now, I suppose one could read Death Field in such a way that you would still take the fire damage. I'm going to push back against that because, again, worst case scenario, by the time we have access to 3rd level spells, we can just fly over this, not stand in it. You are literally putting yourself in harm's way. You're a weird cross between a control and a punisher in this build in my optimized party, and you can follow this card right up here to learn more about that. But of course, if you haven't guessed by now, Burning Entangle and the reason we're playing a Shaman is just real nice in conjunction with the Flame Spirit. We'll talk about those hexes when we get to them. At level 3, the next feat will be Extra Hex for Misfortune. We'll take this from the Witch Hex list because, in fact, we have access to Witch Hexes. A will save negates it. You've heard me talk about why this makes something very powerful quite a lot, and this build will tread into that territory. Anytime the creature makes an ability check, attack roll, save, or skill check, they roll with disadvantage. This is extended for rounds as you level, and of course for us when we start chanting our hex at level 4, it makes for a very potent and angry disadvantage lock. I am intentionally not taking the Slumber Hex because I think that one's just super mean, and I do advise for like health, wealth, and wellness of your parties to not just spam Misfortune chant all the bad guys, because that will make things really unfun for the GM really quickly, and make combats like laughably easy. We have Misfortune to make sure when things move into the entangle, they stay in the entangle. Taking a fire dot, moving at half speed, not instantly out of the fight, but in a bad way, and fueling the thing we want our class to do. Next, from our Flame Spirit, the sweet, sweet Flame Curse. The Shaman causes a creature within 30 feet to become vulnerable to fire until the end of the Shaman's next turn. If the creature is already vulnerable to fire, this hex has no effect. Fire immunity and resistances apply as normal, and any saving throw allowed by the effect that caused the damage reduces it as normal. This is extended by rounds. At 8th and 16th, a creature affected by this hex cannot be again for 24 hours. How unfortunate it is that we cannot chant the Flame Curse on and on and on. Maybe work with your GM on that, see if they will allow it, given that I am definitely and willingly building around doing a boatload of fire damage to things. The element that is most resisted in, I think, all of Pathfinder's published material, at least in like the first couple bestiaries, I'm 100% sure. If not, things are just outright immune. Of course, y'all know how I feel about immunities. Follow this card right here if you do not. As far as resistances go, this just helps you push through things that are resistant, and gods forbid they have nothing and start just taking boatloads of fire damage, which they will from us, because that's what we do. Death Field comes on at level 7. From level 7 on, we should be able to walk through our entangles, at least for a little while suffering no ill effects. We will then follow that up with Extra Hex again. Yeah, that's what we're doing, for Gaze of Flames. This allows us to see through fire, fog, and smoke without penalty as long as there is enough light to otherwise allow our dark vision. At 7th level, we can gaze through any source of flame within 10 feet per Shaman level as Clairvoyance, for a number of rounds per day equal to Shaman level. That don't need to be consecutive. Honestly, within the span of a couple rounds, that's probably all you needed. They're swinging or shooting through concealment, you're not. Standing in the middle of the fire, attacking them with fire spells, physical attacks, other hexes, while they're stuck and have a dot ticking. Ability Focus Hex comes very late, but next, so we can make our DCs go up by 2. And then, really, we're just kind of taking all the Flame Spirit ones. Fire Nimbus. The Shaman causes a creature within 30 feet to gain a Nimbus of Fire. Though this doesn't harm the creature, it does cause the creature to give off light like a torch, preventing it from gaining any benefit from concealment or invisibility. So much for burning entangles smoke stuff. The target also takes a -2 on saves against spells or effects that deal fire damage. So you fire Nimbus whoever is stuck inside your burning entangle to make their life even worse. We'll then take greater spell focus evocation for, even more owies, and then a Cursed Hex. When you target a creature with a hex that cannot target the same creature more than once per day, and the creature passes, you can target the creature with the hex the next turn, essentially. Gives us a little, insurance against being crit on, more or less. Then Greater Vital Strike, since our Mortal Usher stuff is helping us get there. Okay, for our actual, on the hexes side, hexes. Those are a little more straightforward. First, Prehensile Hair. This will instantly cause our hair, eyebrows, mustache, armpit hair, chest hair, you name it, to grow up to 10 feet long and manipulate things as if it were a limb with a strength score equal to our, in our case, because we're a shaman and they get to move it around, wisdom score. Hair's got to reach 10 feet, which can be used as a secondary natural attack that deals 1d3 points of damage. It can manipulate objects, but not weapons, as dexterously as a human hand. It cannot be sundered or attacked. If they decide to bring the scissors to you, it shrinks away to nothing. Using the hair does not harm the witch's head or neck, even if she lifts something heavy with it, at minutes per level. And of course, remember, since we're replacing strength with our key ability score, that means you get to whap people with your hair and your wisdom. It's good if they try to close in on you. It's probably a better attack than we have until like the guided enchantment or spells later on. And even late game, it is a buffer around you. You literally have a 15-foot reach with a whip, 10 with your hair, 5 with like the thing in your hand. It's really cool. Of course, we will take Chant next as a move action, extend a small amount of hexes for a round, but they are the good ones. Speaking of which, Fortune is the next one, primarily because we are a Vital Strike based character to make sure our Vital Strikes are sticking. Our base attack only ever comes up to 14 and we're expected to participate in melee. There are a lot of things that are going to just straight up dodge us. This, of course, will help even the odds. Back to Shaman things for the next one, Ward of Flames. The next time a warded creature is struck with a melee attack, the creature making the attack takes a d6 of fire damage plus 1 for every 2 Shaman levels possessed. The ward lasts for a minute, after which it fades away. At 8 and 16th, it lasts for an additional attack. It's just a little extra fun stuff that's there. 1d6 plus 10 fire damage is not a lot, and we don't even get that far. But when it could be against something vulnerable to fire for a few attacks, that's pretty good. Even better if it's like a wolf or a tiger, say, with 3 natural attacks, vulnerable to fire, hits you, doesn't know any better, tries to pounce at you, then burns to a crisp. Very good. Then, of course, it's the Evil Eye. A -2 penalty on either armor class, ability checks, attack rolls, saves, or skill checks for a number of rounds equal to 3 plus, in our case, wisdom, or 1 round even if they pass. Eventually this goes to -4 and we just chant this up because, again, we're not as tanky as some other things. Can these hexes be abused? Yes. In some games, yes, abuse them. I'm literally recording this right before going to a game of Raponethuk. And why, yes, in that mega super scary Uber dungeon where everyone is dying, we are abusing these things. In a normal game, these are just here to make sure you can act like a full bad marshal in melee. Secret will be next for maximized spell. Why not have a free meta magic feat? Then lastly, feels weird to take this one at 20th, but it's flavor over overpoweredness, protective luck, which can cause fate to twist, so it benefits a creature within 30 feet for 1 round. Whenever the creature is targeted by an effect that requires an attack roll, including weapon attacks, the attacker must roll with disadvantage. This is extended by a round and is chantable. Disadvantage if you attack me seems a little more fair than disadvantage on all the things. But by 20th level, I feel like it's okay to start pulling out the big guns. Now let's talk some important spells, shall we? Mind you, some of these spells will come through from our Wandering Spirit, and honestly, by virtue of how damn good Wandering Spirit is, you can get a lot of stuff on your spell lists to suit your situation. First up, Obscuring Mist. First level spell for everyone who gets it, which is essentially everyone. In a 20-foot radius from us, 20 feet high, a misty vapor rises around you. It's stationary, obscures all sight, including dark vision beyond 5 feet. A creature 5 feet away has concealment. Creatures farther away have total concealment, and the attacker cannot use sight to see you. Moderate winds will disperse this in 4 rounds. Strong winds disperse this in a round. A fireball, flame strike, or similar spell burns away the fog in the explosive or fiery spell's area. A wall of fire burns away the fog into which it deals damage. So, like, this one's probably only gonna function for us for a little bit. But since we can essentially see through this, and a lot of our enemies will not be able to, this will allow us to whip our hair back and forth and break people's necks while giving us a little bit of protection. It's also wonderful if you're getting shot at from people at range, and you just need to throw up a wall spell real fast, but you're level 1 and can't. And that's probably the low-level dance move for us. Cast Vanilla Entangle, an Obscuring Mist coming out from us. Even if you yourself are not quite at a point where you can escape the entangle, let yourself be entangled, remain stationary, and just swing at folks that can't see you or really get at you. Flame Blade is next. It's a level 2 spell for all shamans, not part of the Flame Spirit. Lasts for minutes per level. A 3-foot long blazing beam of red-hot fire shoots forth from your hand. You wield it as if it were a scimitar. Attacks with the Flame Blade are melee touch attacks, dealing 1d8 points of fire damage plus 1 per 2 caster levels. Since the blade is immaterial, your strength mod does not apply to the damage. A Flame Blade can ignite combustibles. A Flame Blade will set Obscuring Mist on fire. It also forms essentially our primary weapon. Flame Curse somebody and then beat them down with this. And you're targeting touch with an 18 to 20 threat range on a strictly better scimitar. Since this also creates a weapon, remember later on we can and should Vital Strike with this. Maybe at least until you get like a guided scythe or something. Of course, we're gonna talk about Fireball because, well, it's Fireball. D6s of fire damage on a reflex save for half, pretty darn good. Especially when lots and lots and lots of folks are getting stuck in a place, can't really get out, and are bunching up for you to, well, nuke them. Even better when somebody's got a -4 to dex, aka a -2 on their reflex save, hooray. And triply better when we remember to cast Resist Energy, as well as Protection from Energy on ourselves and our buddies going in. Resist Energy at 10 minutes per level grants Resist 10 against the energy type chosen from Acid, Cold, Electricity, Fire, or Sonic upon cast. This goes up to 20 at 7th and 30 at 11th. Pro Energy, stacking-ish with Resist Energy, means any damage that gets through your resistance is absorbed to a total of 12 points per caster level, at which point Protection from Energy is discharged. But y'all see the point here. Get the squad immune to fire, knowing that you're going to start nuking fire all over the board. Especially if you have a lot of low reflex marshals with you who might want to stand in your entangle. I kind of ran through the second half of the LG run of Kingmaker doing that, just having Cocoon cast Burning Entangle and like Valerie and Aja just walking in with very good saves and a little bit of resist fire. They just couldn't get hurt. Meanwhile, everyone else is burning to a crisp. Jumping up to level 6 spells for a very interesting little thing that I'd never really thought about until this build, but seen it a lot and kind of laughed at it. Fire Seeds. You can either turn acorns into splash weapons, or holly berries into little tiny cherry bombs, if you will. The grenades, with a range increment of 20 feet, rolling range touch attacks required to strike the intended target. Remember, if you, oh mortal Usher, do this, you get to add extra D6s on top of stuff. Same is true with the Flame Blade Vital Strike routine. You get a D4 per caster level to divide amongst multiple acorns, none of which can have more than 10 D4 points of damage. Again, when you're adding extra D6s, giving people vulnerability, these should add up pretty quick, to say nothing of the Hollyberry bombs. They're too light to be thrown. If you're within 200 feet of them and speak a command word, they explode, doing 1d8 points of fire damage plus 1 point per caster level to everything within a 5-foot radius of the spot. You can make 8 of these, so 8d8 plus 8. Strap these to yourself, your fighter, anybody who's real good versus fire, and the command word, "Ope," everything just explodes. It's real nice. Of course, also, if you have the chance to prep the battlefield, planting these will go a long way. From the Flame Spirit, ticking up Incendiary Cloud makes a fog cloud, but also it does 66 points of fire damage to everything within the cloud on your turn each round, reflex for half. The smoke, of course, moves away from you at 10 feet per round. By concentrating, you can move this thing, and this is a lot of dots that we can stack on one place for big explosions. Vital Strike whoever runs through to the other side. It's just super tasty. Firestorm, 2 10-foot cubes per level are shot through with sheets of roaring flame that don't hurt vegetation, ground cover, or any plant creatures in the area that you wish to exclude from damage. So suddenly I'm imagining a party of Gorons and Vine Leshies who just kind of laugh hysterically, cast Firestorm on everyone, and just they take no damage. That's the dumbest synergy I've ever seen, thank you, core rulebook. Any other creature in the area takes a d6 of fire per level, max 20 d6. If you have failed that save, you catch on fire and take 4d6 points of fire damage each round until you take a full round action that requires a DC 20 reflex save, which will again hurt V hard if we can just slam the flame curse on that particular person on fire. Oh man, when I made this build, there was a big part of me that very much wanted to go Ifrit for more fire things, and if we weren't stuck to the death field, I probably would have, but hooey, if you're feeling like having a little less shaman powers, or you don't want to be healed by electricity, that cross-blooded sorcerer Orc Draconic could make this sting. Lastly, though it does not appear on our spell list normally, by virtue of the Heaven's Spirit, Chain Lightning, there are a lot of spells in Pathfinder that are like, as a move action, I move this thing. Since almost always we're going to want to use our move action to cackle, I think we're better served once we get to Mortal Usher 10, grabbing this spell, which creates an electrical discharge that begins as a single stroke commencing from your fingertips. Unlike Lightning Bolt, Chain Lightning strikes one object or creature initially, then arcs to other targets, dealing 1d6 points of electricity damage per caster level to the primary target, then it arcs to a bunch of secondary targets. Their reflex save is 2 less. Remember, friends, you can voluntarily fail saves, so if you feel like giving yourself the zots with your own Chain Lightning, given that you will ignore all the damage and heal 1 for every 3 you would have taken, it helps you stay in the fight, which I think is super important. As we move over to the magic items section, before we call this one, if you don't feel like flame cursing when you're fighting a bunch of ground-based things at high level play, Elemental Spell on a meta magic rod, choosing electricity and then not activating your death field as you walk into your now zapping entanglement means you're just healing while folks are getting hurt, which I kind of love. Man, also, if you happen to have a kineticist who's hucking lightning damage, they could just tag you and heal you. That's dope too. Meta magic rods of all shape and size are really what we're looking for on this build, though. As many as you can afford of as many different types of spells, because that's what we do. We are hurting people with fire. We have a lot of tech magic on our spell list, which can be swapped out because we're a divine caster every day. It's real good. The big 6, of course, super necessary. Follow this card right up here to make sure you keep your wisdom up. And also, though, it won't give you extra uses of the spirit itself. An Amulet of the Spirit's Flame variant will allow us to increase our effective level for the purpose of our hex by 2. I think this stacks with ability focus. If I'm honest, this is worded very strange and possibly worded that way in such a way that a GM can shoot it down. But you are not raising your effective level from ability focus, and so too neither are you raising your effective level from the prestige class. You're literally advancing along the same path, so seems good to me. Then lastly, a pair of witch flavored things, which should be easy enough to reflavor over to work for the shaman. We literally do the same thing. First, the Corset of Dire Witchcraft, a +4 armor bonus to AC. When you commune with your familiar to prep your spells, you can increase the caster level of one of your hexes by 2 for 24 hours. Since we literally get witch hexes, right? Should be easy enough to make a shaman version of this. The Cackling Hag's Blouse gives us a +2 competence on intimidate checks, and you get the Cackle Hex, or if you already had the Cackle Hex, twice per day you can cackle as a swift instead of a move, because saving action economy truly is just king. The Quick Runner shirt, of course, combine that with your blouse for a weird blouse shirt effect thing. I don't know fashion, I know D&D. Point is, once a day as a swift action, you get an additional move action, just in case you need to get away from the Balor before you laugh in its face, right? Easy peasy. So final thoughts on this one. Both the Shaman and the Mortal Usher, they're just very, very toolboxy. They have answers for every situation, or they buff out everything you want to do. Honestly, I've made a lot of jokes about casting Greatsword. I think I prefer casting Greatsword from the Druid, Cleric, Oracle, Shaman part of the world, just because there's always that thing there to make you a little better. I'm genuinely starting to like these things quite a lot, and it's making me question everything I've ever known about D&D. And with that versatility, especially on witches and shamans, comes a little bit of responsibility. I'm in a game right now where we've got all of the things we need in terms of magic items and class features and things, and we're very, very hard to hurt. And in so doing, that has kind of made me lose interest in the campaign, because combats have become this very easy rag of repeat the same action, we're super great. And that can happen with a build like this too. So I know this series is all about character optimization and doing things that are super scary and making your GM cry / making your players cry when this thing comes after them. But I definitely said use misfortune sparingly for a reason, because like you can just shut off encounters. Boss fights cease to happen if that first save is failed. With that said, in parties that are a little less optimized, I also like builds specifically like this, or like witches in general, as a means of just supporting the party who isn't as good at putting things together, or like maybe they don't even like building very optimized things, versus adventures that are difficult, GMs who like to have difficult combats, things like that. The shepherd of the small and meek, if you will, making sure your group gets through stuff, helping your group punch up, and also like doing an obscene amount of fire damage, which is always very fun. But that's all the time we have for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I actually got a request from one of my patrons who's in a game with me. So next week, I don't know how the hell we made it this long without ever optimizing around one of my favorite things in all of Pathfinder, the Hunter. But that's our next week. Y'all are amazing. I'll see you next time.